This is Off the Cuff, and I'm Steve from TorahFamily.org. I've done multiple teachings in the past where I've referenced this verse in Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 8. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of our God stands forever. Now, what was the word of Yahweh to Isaiah? This is an important question. Why? Because whatever Isaiah considered to be forever, Peter believed it to be forever as well. This same verse of Isaiah is quoted by Peter. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 24. For all men are like grass, and all their glory is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of the Lord stands forever. And this is the word that was preached to you. So what is the word of Yahweh that Isaiah said is forever, and Peter quotes it as the same? This is far more than just being important. This is foundational to our faith. It's declared in both the Old and New Testaments. That being said, please consider what we read from Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 5. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 5. At that time I stood between Yahweh and you to declare to you the word of Yahweh, because you were afraid of the fire and did not go up the mountain. And he said, I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of Egypt and out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. And then he proceeded to give them the 10 Commandments, showing what? The law, the Torah that was given through Moses, is the word of Yahweh. So there it is. The word of God that Isaiah said stands forever is the Torah. Now, let's read that verse from Isaiah again. Isaiah 40, verse 8. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of our God stands forever. The Torah. The Torah stands forever. This is why Isaiah said what he did when speaking of the future kingdom under Yeshua's reign. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 3. Many peoples will come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. And this is why Isaiah said what he did in chapter 51. Isaiah 51, verse 4. Listen to me, my people. Hear me, my nation. The law will go out from me. My justice will become a light to the nations. The psalmist equally says his word is the light just the same. Psalms 119, verse 105. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light for my path. His word, the law, will become a light to the nations because it is the light. They just haven't acknowledged it as such yet. But that day will come when Yeshua reigns from Jerusalem in the millennial kingdom. In that day, the nations will see that his law is and has always been the light. Now, some might say, but Steve, Jesus said he is the light of the world. And I say, absolutely. He lived the law flawlessly for all to see. Yeshua also said this in John chapter 14, verse 6. Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So, he's the way, truth, and the life. Now, please consider what the scriptures say the Torah is. Deuteronomy 11 says it's the way. Deuteronomy 11:26. See, I am setting before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing if you obey the commands of Yahweh your God that I am giving you today. The curse if you disobey the commands of Yahweh your God and turn from the way that I command you today by following other gods which you have not known. So, Torah is the way. Psalm 119 says it's the truth. Psalm 119, 142. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is truth. So Torah is the truth. Deuteronomy 32 says it's the life. Deuteronomy 32, verse 46. He said to them, Take to heart all the words I have solemnly declared to you this day, so that you may command your children to obey carefully all the words of this law. They are not just idle words for you. They are your life. By them you will live long in the land you are crossing the Jordan to possess. So, Torah is the life. The very things Yeshua himself said he was, Torah is. When one walks in obedience to Yeshua, you're walking in obedience to the Torah. When one walks in obedience to the Torah, you're walking in obedience to Yeshua. Thus, Yeshua is the light of the world. Yeshua is the law lived out. And this is why we read this in John chapter 1. John 1 verse 3. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. Verse 4. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. Again, Yeshua is the law lived out. It's his light shining forth. We can know the law all we want, but we have to live it out. The Pharisees knew the Torah, but they didn't live it out. We see that in Matthew 23, verses 1 through 4. And we also see it in Mark chapter 7, verses 9 through 13. The law should be our testimony. It should be that which we pursue in life every day. It should be that which comes to mind when people think of us. When we pursue it through the faith of Yeshua, we declare the life of Yeshua in our life, thus shining forth his light in our life. Then our speech will declare the Torah while our life follows suit in declaring the life of Yeshua, shining forth his light in our life. Thus, the words of Isaiah in chapter 8. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 20. To the law and to the testimony, if they do not speak according to this word, they have no light of dawn. It's our faith and our deeds going hand in hand. This verse in Isaiah is the Old Testament equivalent of James 2:17. James 2:17. In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. The following verses in that chapter discusses the faith and works of Abraham. James concludes that section about Abraham with verse 24, saying, you see that a person is justified by what he does and not by faith alone. Why? Because what you do is ultimately decided by what you really believe. So, what does your life, that being your actions and deeds, speak out? If your mouth and your life doesn't speak the Torah, Isaiah chapter 8 verse 20 says there is no light in you. And James 2:17 declares the same thing by saying your faith is dead. So we're to declare the Torah and pursue the Torah through faith in Yeshua. If we don't, we have no light. These two go hand in hand. I recently saw a meme that showed a small rowboat with only one paddle being used. It was only going in circles. The next picture then showed the other paddle only being used. It just spun in circles in the opposite direction. The last picture showed them both being used at the same time, and the boat was moving forward. Likewise, with our faith and works, one without the other is meaningless. Both working hand in hand produces fruit. It's the Word, the whole Word of Yahweh, that we're to live our life in accordance with. Consider even Deuteronomy chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 3. He humbled you, causing you to hunger, and then feeding you with manna, which neither you nor your fathers had known, to teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. Does it say on some words from the mouth of Yahweh? Only a select few words from the mouth of Yahweh? Only the words that aren't done away with? No, on every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. I know there are many who say the law, his Torah, has been done away with. However, if that's true, then they're equally declaring Isaiah a false prophet just the same. Plus, if the Torah was indeed done away with, why do we see the enemy pursuing those who obey the commands of Yahweh and hold to Yeshua's testimony in Revelation chapter 12, verse 17? These are the ones who overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, meaning the Torah in their life, their faith and actions working together. Isaiah said his word lasts forever. If Yahweh said it was a light back then it's still the light today. Yeshua said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, "You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden." How is this the case? If we're walking in His ways, His light will shine through us. And remember, this verse is from what many call the Sermon on the Mount. This sermon is wrapped up in chapter 7. Just 7 verses before he concludes that sermon, he says this. Matthew 7:21. "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty works in your name?' And then will I declare to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness.'" A true prophet will always lead you back to the Torah. And that was what Yeshua was doing. He was preaching the Torah. That was what Isaiah was doing as well. Make the law be what comes from your mouth and is evidenced in your life, your testimony. When you do, His light will shine from you no matter where you are. Make His light shine from you every day. Well, that's all I have. Think about it. Pray about it. But more than anything, be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Until next time, Shalom.